All right, and we are live. I am going to wait for just a minute or two here to get a few more eyeballs on the screen. But in the meantime, if you want a shout out, go ahead and say hi in the chat. Give a shout out here. Oswald Spanger's in the house. It's funny you should mention that, Oswald. I tend to agree. Yeah, I assume that perhaps you're making a Bob's Burgers where they had the knitting circle and they said my knitta, and I agree. What up, my knittas? For anyone who's into arts and crafts. Thank you for introducing me to Dark Journalist, man. I owe you big time. Hey, no problem, Dark Journalist. Daniel Liz is an absolute G, and he's one of my inspirations for the show for sure. He does a stellar research. Yep. And so, hey, what's up, Doug Swenson? Yeah, Dark Journalist is the man. So we got 10 people here, so I'm just going to take my patented LaCroix long sip in the middle of a sentence. And then I'm actually going to open today by reading from my homie Tom Siebert's amazing Substack called A Wrinkle in Tom. And that's Tom Siebert, Tom for Tom, and then Siebert is Siebert. And so Tom writes, it's really interesting. The perpetual fear factor mockingbird media machine has got the country freaking out. Actually, I'm going to switch it so I can have my eye on that. It's got the country freaking out. The moon, the eclipse, the stars, the comets, the war, the invaders, corruption, obstruction, destruction, a 4.8 earthquake, 4.8 magnitude earthquake before the 4.8 eclipse, i.e. We'll get back to that. He said, even though I pledged to take my foot off the gas during this precarious period of Mercury in retrograde, that would have been wise, but Tom's got to keep it real, and he kept going. And April's annual satanic season of sacrifice, that is a thing. I cannot resist the urge, of course, I'd say Malachian. I cannot resist the urge to share a relevant history lesson, one I just saw recently. Researching the last time there was an X pair of American eclipses, it was in 1806 and 1811. So 1806 and 1811. He discovered all the chaos, natural disasters, and wars that followed. 3 massive earthquakes across the Mississippi Valley, the escalation of and climax to the bloody Indian Wars for control of the Midwest, and then the War of 1812 against the United Kingdom. And I'm just reading straight from his blog, by the way. Joined by the Indians that led to the burning of the White House in D.C. War of 1812 had a little bit more to do with the rejection of the renewal of the charter of the Second Bank of the United States. Rothschild and bankers of the Rialto Venetian black nobility much. And he goes, and off continent, meanwhile, and simultaneously in Europe, Napoleon conquered the world almost. Yeah, very interesting. So let's see, what else does he say? So I'm going to just scroll down a little bit. So he goes, because yes, we have a precedent for the seemingly supernatural shift subsequent to sun obscuring eclipses over the United States. A pair of significant solar eclipses marking an X across the nation has indeed occurred before. 2 eclipses, 1,919 days apart. First on June 16th, 1806, and the second on September 17th, 1811. Their paths cross not far from what is now Cleveland, Ohio. And he provides a map. So again, if you want to read more of this, it's on Wrinkle and Tom. Great name, by the way, on Substack. Great guy. I've had him on the show before. I'm going to have him again. He goes, at this time, incidentally, during the latter days of the eclipse, there was the Great Comet of 1811. Bit of a parallel. Now historically known as Tecumseh's Comet in America, named after the Shawnee Native American leader. In European history, it's called Napoleon's Comet. So he said, just like then as now, the media freaked out, oh, we're all going to die. That's kind of a classic thing that goes back for forever. And it was the longest duration and most vivid flare-up of any comet at that point in history until 1997. So yeah, we've got this eclipse showing up. I'm just scanning to see like if I want to say anything else. So this is interesting. From December 16th, 1811 through March of 1812, there were over 2,000 earthquakes across the central Midwest and between 6,000 and 10,000 earthquakes in the Boot Heel of Missouri, where the town of New Madrid is located. Near the junction of the Ohio and Mississippi rivers, the devastation was unimaginable. 86,000 casualties, 730,000 people displaced, 300 billion in direct economic loss, roughly 7 trillion in 2024 dollars, which is nutty. So the first earthquake they had for this was a magnitude 7.9 on the Richter, followed by a 7.8, and then finally an 8.0, the largest in U.S. history until 1964's 9.2 earthquake, which rocked Prince William Sound, Alaska. Okay, so that kind of get to me what I want to talk about. Oh yeah, the Missouri ended up going backwards for a minute. And even there were ghostly lights flashing from the earth because quartz crystals were squeezed by earthquake pressures, and then they released their, I forget what that's called, that electric charge, piezoelectric charge. It's a great article. You really ought to read the whole thing. I'm not going to read any more because I just wanted to get some of that flavor out there. And it was a very significant time, and I would argue that Napoleon was very much a Luciferian force in the world. It's funny, the European conquerors of the past 200 years, Napoleon, and I'm coming around on Toothbrush Mustache Man also might fall in this category. They both were very Luciferian in character, and they both started off hot and then got utterly clapped by the Malachian Saturnian forces, right? They started off hot, Mars, Mars avatars in both cases, I think. And then in both cases, they got clapped by the Saturnian, lower Saturnian energies of Moloch because just that Luciferian energy is not ready to take root yet. So going to get here to some of my show notes. Yeah, so Tom Siebert, check out the rest of that article. It's fire. He brings up a lot of stuff. So what do you think happened on the eclipse? You know, right? Everyone's asking me this. You're an astrologer, you're psychic, all this kind of stuff, right? True. But a lot of things are hidden even from, people who are gifted with claircognizance. My thought is that other than the possibility of an earthquake, which I think is way less than a 0% chance, unfortunately, I think that likely the vast majority of what we're seeing in terms of the media is loosh harvesting, that they're trying to get a great deal of emotional upset in order to freak people out, and then they're channeling that energy into a dark ritual, which will take place behind closed doors. Now, I'm not going to say it because I don't want to trigger the algorithm or get anyone mad at me. Some people have been pretty next level angry at me recently, and so I'm trying to avoid some of the super ultra giga hot topics, but I can just say the whole cow thing, if you know what I'm saying, right? The cows, if that goes down tomorrow, that would be a bit horrifying. So keep an eye for that if that thing goes down. I think they'll wait till Passover on that. So Peter Champoux, who I've had on the channel before, the geomancer, he was very fascinated by this eclipse, and we talked about it, God, like 8 months ago, something like that. I think it was last summer when we talked about it. I don't remember exactly when I had it. Could have even been longer ago than that. It might have even been this time last year. I'd have to look up exactly when. Actually, you know what? I can look up exactly when. I have the power of Grayskull right before me. So let's see here. We had that interview roughly around May 30th of 2023. So yeah, it was almost exactly a year ago. Kind of nutty and wild. Oh gosh, where did this go? There we go. And so, yeah, we had it almost a year ago, and I hadn't really dived into things. And it's kind of wild. I have Pluto right on my ascendant, and that tends to mean that you have almost unlimited ability to transform yourself and others. Kurt Cobain actually had it on his ascendant. If you don't roll with the transformation, which can be massive, it can also, drag you down. Pluto on the ascendant's heavy thing, but I watched that video earlier today to refresh my memory of what Peter said, and I was just kind of shocked to look at myself because I didn't almost even recognize myself, like how much I've changed and up-leveled and just evolved during that period of time is really nutty. And I think it's true of almost everyone. Like most of the people I'm close with have had massive transformation, in the past year. And for me personally, it really has been off the chain during this eclipse. It happens right in my first 7th house axis. So fundamental change of the person, partnerships and business partnerships have been really emphasized. And And my sun and rising sign are right along this sidereal Virgo Pisces axis. So it's been particularly transformative for me. And so Peter Champoux in that interview said that he thought there was a real risk of earthquakes because it goes right over the New Madrid fault zone, and having the moon and the sun align like that means that there's a tremendous amount of gravitational pull, and it goes right over the New Madrid fault line. That's very concerning given all the like FEMA stuff like that. I mean, there is a chance that they're concerned about that and they didn't want to freak people out. That's the one thing I'm kind of worried about, is could there be an earthquake that will occur during that period of time? I don't think there's going to be anything else other than that, but I do think that's a possibility because that just, it clicks on a physical reality kind of level. And we have already had what sure looks like a, what do you call those things before the tremblers they have beforehand? I can't remember. A pre-shock. There's aftershocks, and I forget what it is, but a pre-shock, something like that. It could be that 4.8 was a whatever the beforehand version of aftershock is. There could be earthquake weapons. One thing that's very creepy is on a Fox News show, I saw a clip of this, assuming it wasn't AI, who knows now. This host said, yeah, and we also have an eclipse earthquake coming up. What? And the woman who is with the guy goes, you know, like leans back in her chair, like, what the actual fuck, right? So I don't know. Just if you happen to live in that area, just, you know, bathtub under doorways, all that kind of stuff, the normal like earthquakey stuff. Probably don't want to be out driving, probably want to have water and stuff like that. But I don't think anyone should get too freaked out, because I do think, you know, a big part of what's happening right now is it's loosh harvesting. What I mean by that is that they're getting people super freaked out in order to grab that emotional energy and channel it in the direction of a dark ritual. That's what I really think is going on, because there's so much nonsense. I do think it's interesting that NASA is firing rockets and then blowing them up in the shadow of the moon or whatever bullshit, and that's called APEP, which is basically Rahu, and that's the node that is causing it's the snake that eats the sun in Egyptian mythology, and that's very similar to Rahu, the north node of the moon, and it's Rahu that's causing the eclipse this time. So if there's a dark ritual going on, and you better believe there is, behind the scenes, then it's going to take some time to manifest, and that could be in 3 weeks or 3 months, perhaps a bit longer, probably in that range of 3 weeks to 3 months before it activates. As a general rule, spells, the more powerful the spell, the longer it takes to manifest. I would imagine the Malachians are getting rather desperate and they want to get something going sooner. So they're probably going to do things to try and speed up that timetable. But I would look for a window between now and maybe as late as September, but probably more likely 3 weeks from now. So late April into sometime in July, that we'll see major geopolitical events that you can tie back symbolically to what's happening with this eclipse. Remember to write your questions. If you have questions for me for the second half, write them all in bold. That'll make it easier for Elle to help out and find them. And I'm just going to take before I shift here into what the eclipse means in Vedic astrology terms, I'm going to real quick give a shout out. First and foremost, I want to give a shout out to, I am working on my, having a in-person gathering sometime probably late September, around the 26th of September. We haven't finalized it. So I want to give a shout out to Heather Russo. Heather is helping me out. She's fantastic. She's a former angelic magic student. We're actually meeting in the next couple of days to kind of nail that down. I'm going to have an online version and then also an in-person version. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm not sure if I'm going to have like additional speakers. It's mostly just to help people in the community connect with one another, because so many folks that sort of have been attracted to this channel are interested in the themes of creating golden age enclaves, of creating community, and of basically working on our trauma and healing ourselves, that we can move forward and make a really positive impact as we move into this next yuga as Kali Yuga comes to a insane crescendo, getting short on time now, and we'll see what happens. So shout out to Heather Russo. Thank you so much, Heather, for helping me with that. Appreciate you. I want to say thank you to Elle Ashkarian. She is helping me with executive assistant stuff. I want to give a shout out to Brenton War, not War, right? Even though it's spelled with a double R, I figured that it wouldn't be that pronunciation. He was the maestro who came up with the new intro, which you're going to be seeing more of that once I get back into filming pre-filmed things. He came up with all the musical things. And then Krista Herring, thank you for your beautiful vocals. And then Clint Corley, your amazing graphics, been super helpful. Folks are volunteering until I can pay them. Or, well, actually, I'm doing work trade with all these people, or did do work trade in the past. And then we'll be paying some of them in the future for sure. Let's see, who else was I going to say? I know there's another person I want. Oh, Vinay. Vinay is Reese is helping me put stuff over onto BitChute and Rumble and some other channels. And so I'm slowly but surely getting ready to transition. I'll probably still stay on YouTube, but I'll have the really spicy stuff on BitChute and Rumble because, I was naughty and revealed Tay-Tay's family, and you can't reveal Tay-Tay's family. Tay-Tay's protected. She's a protected class. Like, they said that I was naughty for talking about the you-know-what, but the funny thing about that is that my homie has 36,000 subscribers. Yes, that's 6 times what I have. Said outright, really naughty stuff, laying out exactly what happened there. And they were like, you know what? That's fine. You run with that, bro. You just say exactly the lockstep document, and you talk about democide, and you talk about all those things, and you just lay it all out there in unambiguous language. But we're going to nail you into the wall. Cough, cough. It was because I said about Tay-Tay and her family. 1,000,000,000%. That is definitely what got me in trouble for that. So let's see here. Now we're going to go into the eclipse in Vedic terms. So this eclipse is happening in sidereal Pisces, which is the most spiritual sign in the zodiac. And we have an exalted Venus there in Pisces. It's not yet reached its point of maximum exaltation, which is actually in Revati, the nakshatra lunar mansion. But we also have Rahu, Moon, and the Sun, and then Mercury, while not technically in sidereal Pisces, it's just outside of it. It's in 0 and something arc minutes of Aries, and it's retrograding, and it's actually close enough to the Sun to be considered combust. And whenever a planet's combust, it spiritualizes that planet. It tends to devastate the material aspects and really heighten the spiritual aspects of that planet. And so Moon and Mercury are both combust. The nodes don't go combust because the nodes actually eat the luminaries. And so you have Rahu, Moon, and Sun are all what's called hemmed between 2 positives, Mercury and exalted Venus. And so Mercury's retrograde, which kind of adds like a weird element of like technology fails, communications fails. So it could very well be that the Mollies try and pop something off tomorrow, and then it just fucks up because Mercury retrograde comes through in the clutch and slaps that right down. So it could very well be that the Mollies have naughty plans, but then it's gonna blow up in their face. So what we're seeing here is transformation of mind, business, communication, and karmas, and I would say especially between men and women, because you have Sun and Moon coming together, merging. So you have a merging of the divine masculine, divine feminine, but then it's swallowed up by the darkness of Rahu and the materialistic bent of Rahu. Rahu is the head of the dragon that's endlessly hungry, and no matter how much it consumes, it just wants more. And in fact, Rahu shows us what our life purpose is in this life, and also why we incarnated in this life. Because we incarnate in order to have carnal experiences. Yes, pleasure, sex, all of that, but also even negative experiences, and to have that veil of forgetfulness that causes us to forget our prior lives in order to be able to learn deep spiritual lessons, in part by having that ignorance there. Because, right, if you've seen a movie before, even if it's amazing, it's just not as good as when you see it that first time and you don't know what's going to happen. And so in a similar thing, if we knew what our plan was for spiritual evolution in this life, it would really diminish the impact, the visceral impact of what we're going to experience. And so Rahu tends to have a very materialistic impact to it. And you see that like the classic example for me is John Lennon had Rahu conjunct 0 degrees, his Lagna or rising sign in Virgo, which is a sign where at a minimum Rahu does really well. And at worst case, in best cases, it's sign of exaltation. There's all manner of disagreement whether Rahu and Ketu, what signs they're exalted in. I tend to like Prash Trivedi's work. But regardless, Rahu performs extremely well in Virgo. And so the minute John Lennon went into his Virgo Mahadasha, or major planetary period, where that series of karmas ripened, he had this meteoric rise. They went from hitting pubs in Liverpool into being, probably the most famous band of all time. And he had unlimited money, he had unlimited fame, and he had unlimited ladies, right? Just unlimited. And yet, even though he got all that and, wanted to consume, eventually, like, it felt hollow. K2 tends to remove things, the south node, and dissolve them for spiritual reasons. And Rahu tends to either grant you material success or it denies you it, but you have a tremendous lust for it. And so Rahu teaches by either giving or taunting you with you not getting what you want to get. And so, so there's an emphasis with this eclipse on romance, sensuality, divine feminine, because we got the exalted Venus right there. The feminine actually dominates in this eclipse. And that means that for the upcoming eclipse cycle of the next 6 months and the 18 years between this Aries eclipse and the next, the divine feminine rising is going to be a big theme. And so is sensuality, luxury, and the arts. Like, we're probably going to see a big shift in the arts. And I would imagine that would be around rejection of wokeness and probably a return to what the stupid Malachian inverted assholes call the male gaze. I think we've already seen it with this Sweeney woman or whatever. And there's a hilarious fake Ben Shapiro quote, fake Twitter quote that is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I don't even want to say anymore because it's so bad. But look at Ben Shapiro comparing Sweeney to his sister, and it's just pure money. But anyways. I think you're going to see a return of the divine feminine in media, and that's going to be more gorgeous women again. We're going to see beautiful Victoria's Secret models again who are very feminine, right? We're going to see beautiful actresses pushed to the fore and less unattractive actresses that are like anti-divine feminine. Actually, I think you're going to just see more beauty in the arts in general is going to start rising. But especially in the form of specifically beautiful women being prominently featured who aren't either doing the insane like satanic Doja Cat kind of stuff, nor are they behaving like men. They'll be behaving like women, the divine feminine. And I think you're going to see that a lot in the arts. I also think you're going to see women who are embodying the divine feminine be elevated in the arts. And these will be anti-woke female artists would be what that's my read on that. So the main designation for Revati, the nakshatra that the moon, sun, and Rahu are all in, is wealth, interestingly enough. And so massive fluctuations in wealth and financial companies and personal finance could occur, especially in the next 6 months. And all the planets except for Mercury and Venus are in Revati. And that happens to be the nakshatra or lunar mansion where Venus reaches its maximum exaltation. So again, you're seeing this real emphasis on Venus. And that's interesting, right? Because Venus is the morning star. Well, it's interesting because this nakshatra is related to Vishnu, the preserver, right? And we have an X going over the middle of the United States. And who has a sigil with an X in it that's sometimes called the morning star? Our our big dog who's about to put the clap on Moloch. That's who. Lucifer is very much related to X, in every sense of the word, including Twitter. And Lucifer is also the morning star. It's the higher and lower aspect of Venus, like the seductress, but also like the glorified arts. So, and then Vishnu, I believe that the triplicity that they have in Vedic culture, I'm coming more and more and more around to that triplicity is related to the Malachian Luciferian Most High consciousness, with Brahman being the Most High, Vishnu, the preserver, right? Who preserves the evolution of humanity by driving us out of the golden age so that we can continue to evolve, because we get kind of stuck in a rut of awesomeness in the golden age. Cannot wait until I'm stuck in a rut of awesomeness instead of 6,000 years of Kali Yuga. Looking real forward to that rut, and I'm going to go deep in that rut. But so Lucifer also saves us from Moloch at the tail end of the Kali Yuga. So Lucifer being Vishnu, the preserver, makes a lot of sense. Brahman, the creator, being the Most High, the creative principle on our planet, makes a lot of sense. The one that's the most tricky to me is Shiva the Destroyer being Moloch, because Shiva has just such a better energy to me. And of course, it's just a different aspect through a different lens. I mean, part of it is that the cultural lens for Shiva in India is that it's a critical part of the functioning of the universe. Whereas in the West, where we have, interestingly enough, Malachian consciousness, if you're either with us or against us, everything's black or white, right? It's hard to look at Moloch and not see it as just pure evil. And certainly I'm very much ready to be done with Moloch, right? Ready for Moloch to be cast directly into the pit, right? So I do think it's fascinating that you have all this Luciferian symbolism happening in this eclipse. And the last time, the other part of the X was 2017, which was kind of the Trump eclipse, right? So very, very, very interesting. And I'm going to get to all these great questions. And thank you, Dabby Guyarbrowski 26 for the donation. We'll get to that right away. So this eclipse is hyper transformative. For me, it's been, this past 3 weeks have been some of the most insane, disruptive. I really have to be careful talking about it. I had a real, very serious kind of brush with death, I guess you could say, during this period of time. I had incredible successes in business, just incredible successes. By the way, the Sam Tripoli episode, which I think is the finest thing I've ever done, is coming out in 2 days. I'm actually looking forward to watching it because I just got out of my own way, which is exactly what I want to segue into here in this eclipse. This eclipse is very transformative, and I recommend you lean into it. You can ignore it. You don't have to use these energies to help yourself and to transform, but I recommend that you take this opportunity to work through these following factors. So first of all, you should definitely meditate tomorrow if you possibly can. Just take a little bit of silence, clear your mind. It's around 11:06 a.m. Pacific Standard Time is when the point of exactitude happens. If I was in the path of the total eclipse, I'd definitely have to go outside and take a look-see at that bad boy. But since I'm not, I'm probably not going to go outside. I'm just going to meditate, and I'm going to fire off some very relevant text during that period of time. I'm actually having a super huge conversation about my personal life, and please wish me well on that one, because that's one of the biggest things tomorrow. And so meditate and prepare yourself for this next 6-month cycle and the larger cycle of the next 18 years, which puts us all the way in 2042. This cycle in Aries and all the themes of tropical Aries or sidereal Pisces is really, it's really going to come to the fore between now and 2042, and especially over the next 6 months before we hit the next eclipse cycle, because there's basically like eclipse cycles that happen, and then you have a grand cycle of eclipses to where you end up in the exact same sign that the prior eclipse took place. And so 18 years from now, there'll be another eclipse in sidereal Pisces or tropical Aries. And so those themes are going to keep coming up. And so the energies of this eclipse will be with us, and we need to allow the necessary changes to happen. If you meditate and then concentrate on old patterns you want to dissolve, right? Addictions, just things where you're like, gosh, I really don't want to do this anymore. I'm done with that. Whatever that might look like, this is a great opportunity to dissolve them. So another thing is taking your business in a new direction is really wise. You might want to wait a few days, right? Or if you really want to lean into the energies of the eclipse and have explosive wild card energy, do it on the day of the eclipse. This eclipse has been, I tried to like minimize some of the impact in this eclipse, despite I had that big trip to Mexico and LA for business and spiritual stuff. I really tried to minimize certain things, and the eclipse was like, that's nice, Ian. How sweet. You're so sweet, Ian. That's so cute. That's so cute that you thought you could control this hyper-destined period of time, right? So I just have decided, fuck it, we ball, as my teenage son would say. So taking your business in a new direction is wise. Healing problems around relationships and realizing how you might have been able to comport yourself better. That's a big one, right? Like, don't worry about what he or she did. What did you do? And don't sit here and tell me, like, sure, you might have been victimized in whatever relationship, you know, you might have been the one who was like actually the nicer of the two. You might have been nobler, but we all, in all relationships, if we're really honest, there's ugly patterns, usually around our parents and our childhood, that come up in relationships. And now's the time to dissolve those. I think it's extra powerful for women, but honestly, as an embodied male, the other way you can look at it is how we relate to women as men is a huge theme of this. So I'm just going to take a quick sip here. So healing problems around relationships and realizing how you might be able to comport yourself better. It doesn't matter what the other person did at the end of the day. What matters is where you have power, and that's in internal transformation and taking accountability and responsibility for what you did in that relationship or in a current relationship, right? So healing problems around relationships and realizing how you might be able to comport yourself better, finding ways to realize and heal old patterns around communication. That's a big one. It's one that I'm really planning on working on tomorrow. And again, that's because Mercury's in the mix here. And just, you should know that this is the most transformative eclipse of many years. And all of this is even more important to Americans, and to a lesser extent or greater in some ways to people who are in Mexico, because in Mexico, this eclipse goes over the zone of silence and then up through the US. And so it's a bit more intense for Americans because you get that X factor. I really need to just have a drum set here just to be able to get a rim shot now and then. But it's going to be quite big for Mexico. I think we're probably going to see some big action probably along the border, right? Either now or right after, perhaps the Biden administration feeling like, oh, the assets are in place. Yeah, now close down the border now that we got everyone in we need. So, it'll be gearing up for election season. Makes a lot of sense that Biden would suddenly magically go, oh my gosh, I could have done this the whole time. Why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I realize that it was actually me who removed all those Trump-era executive orders, and I could just, anytime I want, put them back into place. I don't have to hold a gun to Congress's head. I could just act. Oh, wait, right. It's part of a George Soros weaponized immigration. So this is a hugely transformative eclipse, but don't worry about what's going on out there. I mean, unless earthquake aside, worry about what's going on in here. Anyone watching this channel, anyone who's not just dipping in and out, this is the time to take full responsibility for your life. Take full responsibility for your life. If you can take full responsibility for your life, everything opens up, and that's when everything changes. And the first step for that, for those of us like me who have trauma, is healing that trauma. And the next step is total accountability. And then the third step is action from a place of spiritual alignment, where your spirit, your mind, your heart, emotions, get them lined up, figure out what you want to do, figure out what works for you, where your passions lie, and boom, go in that direction, and your life can just really, really take off. And so I'm going to take a quick break, and I've learned that the goddamn break screen does not come up. I love how everyone just let me roll with that for like 1,000 years. Thank you so much, by the way, for letting me look like a jackass all this time, everybody. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mute the mic, and I'm going to, I think, I'm going to stop the mic and the cam, but I'm going to real quick say Q&A in the second half. Write your questions in all caps for L. And thank you again to all the beautiful people who have been helping me and the channel and the White Lotus community out. I so appreciate it. Okay, I will be back very shortly. All right. I think it's back. Can you guys hear me? If someone can just say it, I can hear you or something like that. A plenty good break screen. Yeah, I just was reading what look within said. Can you guys hear me though? I think it's unmuted now. All right, let's go back to the beginning. All right. Thank you for doing all these lives you've been putting on. Much appreciated. You're very welcome, David. Yeah, I mean, Yeah, so going through a lot of transitions in my life, and some of them are allowing me to have a bit more free time is the only upside of it. I don't know if relevant folks are watching, so I just don't want to go into things at all. But yeah, you're very welcome. Like, excited to do it. One nice thing is as I transition away from doing so many charts, the like sort of like charts where I'm not putting in as much time, the charts for that I'm about to close at the end of the month. By the way, if you're interested in getting a chart reading from me, unless you're wanting to go really deep and like get me on a retainer to where I can do chart, a deep chart for you, and also like do business charts, that kind of thing, the whole JP Morgan millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do kind of thing. If you're like an ambitious person who can afford it, I can definitely help you like really take things to the next level, pour some gasoline on that fire. But you have to be someone who is ethical and reasonable. I'm not going to work for someone, not that I think any Malachians really are watching the channel. I don't mind working with people who are in that businessman mentality, right? You can't be most high consciousness and work in business. I understand that. But if I get any kind of whiff, like someone I work for isn't on the level and moving towards that most high consciousness, wanting to participate in the raising of human consciousness, then I won't work with you. But if you're in that wheelhouse, then I will. And so for everyone else who's not wanting to buy like the astrological concierge package or get a 10+ hour retainer from me, something like that, really, I am shutting down in 3 weeks from now ish, the end of April. I'll be doing charts into however long they're booked out, but I'm not gonna have people book anymore for charts. But what I will do is I will continue to be doing the angelic magic class, and that's up and ready to go. It's on the website if anyone's interested in the angelic magic class. It's going to be every Thursday. I'm doing a little bit different than I've done in the past. It's going to be every Thursday starting May 16th. So it'll be the 16th, 23rd, 30th of May, and then the 6th, 13th, and I think I'll end on the 20th of June, or maybe the 27th of June, actually. So it'll be basically half of May and all of June in terms of the Thursdays. It'll be 7 classes of about 90 minutes apiece. And I'm keeping the prices on that really affordable, but still, paying me a reasonable amount for my time. I mean, you're going to get like probably 10 or 12 hours of time from me. And so I think the price is totally reasonable. It's $428.95. Why that number, Ian? I'm glad you asked, because it's numerology. That's why, because it ends up when you add all those numbers together, first there's a 28 in it, and then it goes down to 28. And so I'm doing it for numerological reasons. But I think it's a really fair value. It's actually a little bit less than I charged for the last class, in part because I want to do that numerology thing, and also because Elle, the magician, she managed to figure out a way to where I can have more people in the class than I've had in the past. And so that is allows me to lower the price to that price point. It's not vastly cheaper, but it is cheaper, and all the rest of the prices are going up. So if anything. All right, so let's go. Wow, that's interesting. I'm just going to put this up for a second. Rick says, it's good to see you again, Rick. It's been a minute. I gave you a shout out, Brent, if you missed that, by the way. So Rick says, I was born the exact same date, place, and time as Napoleon. Rick, I got to say, sincerely, you look amazing for 220. I wouldn't have put you a day past 105. I'm just playing, bro. No, man, that's hilarious. He says, except for the year. Dude, who cares if these dudes are mad? Speak your truth. Yeah, you might say that, but if you'd experienced what I experienced, you would not say that. So it's a little bit more than someone being like, hey, you shouldn't do that. It's more like it was a little bit more hardcore than that. I can't talk about it. I literally cannot. So let's go to Elle. And then Elle, did you grab the you did. Fantastic. Elle is so amazing. So Dabby Guyar Broski 26 gave a $5 donation. Thank you so much. What are your thoughts about watching the eclipse? As an astrologer, I'd want to know where the eclipse hits your chart to say for certain. There's always a higher and lower octave to things. And I think when people are stuck in a lower consciousness, probably looking at the eclipse is not a good thing. It's funny because the 2017 eclipse was very close to the nadir of my adult life. I had darker moments in my youth, but it was like one of the darkest moments of my life. And it was right when things were starting to turn around, actually, because it was like spring. I think it was spring of, I guess it was summer of 2017. So 2016, I moved into my Navamsa, but I still hadn't worked through all the lessons of my natal chart. So I still kind of like went back into that. And it was kind of my last goodbye to a completely different phase of my life. Like I've transformed more in the past 4 years than the entire 44 years before that. I've transformed more in the past 3 weeks than I've transformed in the past year. And I mean, it just time keeps compressing the transformations for me. And so that eclipse was absolutely mind-boggling. It was astonishing. I went outside. I was in Portland, Oregon. I really regret not driving another 45 minutes south to see the crazy ass plasma shit coming off the sun. But I saw 99.9%. I've heard that for anyone who's seen both versions, that the totality is absolutely worth the drive and whatever. Don't ever drive during an eclipse, though. Don't travel during an eclipse. That's super dangerous. Watching it, though, with proper gear, I pulled don't do this, do not do what I did, but I did pull a Trump and go, I did raw dog the sun for a second, which you're super not supposed to do. I couldn't help it. I had to. And then I found out Trump had done it, and I was like, my nida. Like, all right then, Trump. Like, finally a point in the Trump column, because up to that point I hated Trump. So I was kind of like, that was kind of a baller move, Trump. And like, also I did that, like, mutual, birds of a feather or something like that. So it really depends on where it is in your chart, and it depends on your level of spiritual development. I think a more developed person can draw upon the higher octave of that energy. What it is it's Rahu's energy is like absolutely insane, because Rahu's like, I'm swallowing the sun and the moon at the same time and just creating like, I dominate the planet for a moment, my energies. And Rahu does have a higher aspect. You can have an insatiable desire to uplift humanity, for example. You could have an insatiable desire to do good works in the world, right? Or to gain knowledge that you spread to others, or to bring art into the world and beauty into the world, right? That's all the higher, an insatiable desire to attain enlightenment. That's the higher octave of Rahu, right? It's just insatiable desire. So what is that, right? Like, what do you want more than anything else, right? Like, what do you want more than anything else? And for me, I have my triple purpose that has been given to me by the Most High and the angels. And, the primary prong of that is the creation of golden age enclaves around the planet. The other two are more personal to me and my family, because my family is incredibly important to me. It's the most important thing, actually, my family and my children first and foremost. And so I felt that eclipse, then it's interesting because it kicked off a cycle to where, now it's 7 years later. Is that right? Let's see, 17, 3, 4, 7. Yeah, it's 17 years or 7 years later. And it very closely mirrors the 8-year karma cycle with, actually, I think it's more than that. Never mind, scratch that point. Yeah, so this is a long-winded way of saying, really, you're just going to have to go with your intuition on that. The ancients said, don't do it. But the ancients were also at a lower ebb of the Kali Yuga. And so what might have been right for them might not be right for us. I see this eclipse as being insanely transformative. And if you were to use this eclipse and the energies of this eclipse, go out and view it and plan to dissolve negative patterns in yourself, right? Not anything external, but straight up those themes I talked about earlier of communication, or how you relate to women, or how you embody femininity. If you're an embodied woman, this should be about you stepping into your divine feminine, this eclipse. If you're an embodied man, and sorry, I I recognize there's 0.01% of people who are intersex, but I'm speaking to the 99.99% here. And it doesn't matter whether you're gay or straight, right? But what matters is, are you divine masculine or divine feminine? And you can tell by looking at your genitals, right? Whatever the genitals you have, that's what you're meant to embody. And if you have feelings towards the same sex, then that's great. That's fine. But their genitals are God's hint to you of what you're supposed to embody. And so for women, stepping into your divine feminine right now is going to be really powerful. And maybe any self-limiting beliefs and being receptive, right? Being able to be this conduit of grace upon this earth, embodying beauty, being alluring. There's nothing wrong with that, right? And then men, of course, be respectful to women, duh. Like, and men, we need to enforce it when we see other men stepping over bounds with women. Don't buy all the white knighting bullshit. You know, I mean, you got to consider the situation, but step in there and protect the divine feminine. That's our job, right? So, yeah, and if you're a male, one of the things is you can dissolve how you have dealt with women, any negative patterns you have with the divine feminine archetype. And for either sex, there's transformation in communication and business and magic to some degree, all the different things that Mercury stands for. Because we have Mercury is kind of in the mix here. It's just a little outside of Pisces, but it's in that crossover point between Pisces and Aries, and it's so close to the rest of it that the energies of Mercury are definitely in the mix here. And so business, taking your business in a new and exciting direction, you know, and kind of like having that in your mind as you observe the eclipse. I urge you not to feel greedy when you're doing this, but if you feel excited about a business, and with that business, you know that you're going to take the money from that and do good works and spend your money in a positive way, right? And hopefully put your money back out in the world to get that conduit of money coming through you, then this is a great opportunity. Thinking about communication patterns. Do I not talk enough because I'm scared people will reject me? Talk more. Are you like Ian and you can't stop talking? Show some respect to people around you. That's literally one of the things I'm going to work on this eclipse. It's a very hard and deep one for me because my father talked nonstop, and if you interrupted me, he'd give me the back of his hand, right? Very strong man. He was a farmer in Montana in his youth, and he was very strong. And so that was not fun, to put it mildly. And so I have a bit of a thing about, I wanted my dad to hear me. I wanted my dad to recognize who I was. And I wanted him to see value in me. And it seemed to me like the way to do that was to talk and be heard. And my father wouldn't let me. And so I talked in everywhere else I could, and searching for my father's love through that in some degree. And I realized that it harms people around me that I love. And I just met someone who, for the first time in my life, I met someone who, when they interrupt me, it doesn't make me see red. And I want to kill them for interrupting me. Despite the fact that I interrupt, by the way, right? So this is an unhealthy pattern. Obviously, nothing about what I'm describing sounds healthy. And so this is a chance to take that energy of the eclipse and use it to dissolve negative patterns around communication. And so that's one of the things I'm planning on doing with this eclipse. And so you're going to have to trust your own intuition. Definitely, if you're going to go out there and do it, meditate before you go out there. Cleanse your mind. Take deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Longer out breath than in breath. Complete emptying. Take at least 3 or 4 of those. That's a bare minimum. I would highly recommend, if you're going to go look at the eclipse, meditate for as long as possible beforehand. So there we go. What do you think about that Singapore bridge ship thing was about? Was it a signaling thing? Yeah, the thing in Baltimore. Yeah, I believe that it was. I think it was the Lucy's telling the Malakians we're about to take out your human trafficking. Like, you can't use that anymore as a bridge between this world and the lower astral. We're taking it out because it's a container ship. And I've heard rumors there was lots of human trafficking stuff on it. And that's why the Biden administration came in and said they were going to federalize the disaster so they can hide it, right? But when does it happen? It happens at the same time as the P. Diddy thing. And immediately there was a meme out that just looked a little too slick and a little too on the nose and a little too fast. and it showed the bridge. This is so crude, but it said the bridge was aspiring rappers' assholes. And then P. Diddy was the barge, just completely slamming through the bridge. Oh, it's so bad, but so hilarious. Sometimes you just got to drink from that silver chalice of laughter. But I mean, the fact that it's funny and the fact that it's kind of propaganda against P. Diddy and bringing more attention to it, that has a feeling like it's a Luciferian signaling. And you know, the whole 17th letter to the alphabet thing, like there's definitely been stuff about watch the water and water. I still think it's going to be the watermarks on the ballots. Trump brought that up a little while ago again. Yeah, we'll see what happens, but remember they are Lucy, so you can't really trust them, right? So let's just see. Look Within said the bookshelves are a pretty great break screen. I know. How does nobody tell me that until like someone who I don't think has ever commented on the channel before is like, by the way, like your break screen doesn't work. All this time I thought it had this nice white lotus of light. We'll be back after a break. Thank God I almost always mute it. I hope there's never been like something super embarrassing. And honestly, I don't want to know at this point if there has been. Okay. Do you think it's a financial ritual that may manifest in the weeks after the eclipse, a last ditch effort to take control? Do you mean to reassert control? Could be. It's happening in the, if I remember correctly, it's happening in, oh no, it's not that. So the sidereal Aries and Libra axis, I believe, is where the 1929 crash happened. But 6 months from now would be perfect. October 7th would be right in the money for their normal financial crash kind of stuff. So could it be that it's, given that it's a wealth thing, could it be that they're going to try and crash the system in order to preserve their wealth and therefore their power? Absolutely. I think that's a great read. I think that's a fantastic read. And so tip of the hat to you, Juju Bear. More beauty like the Renaissance, more beautiful actual women, like not men dressed as women. Yes, we're going to raise our bar slightly above bearded men in dresses. No, we're going to really raise it. And by the way, beauty, true beauty, like in the form of, in particular, beautiful women, it does really just do something to the mind. That's why those women are targeted almost above and beyond all other people, is because they embody this archetype of beauty. And I mean, targeted by the forces of evil. And one of the things that is a problem in our society is that truly beautiful women, it's a very lonely thing, right? I'm talking about like the super ultra mega giga gorgeous Instagram models, right? The ones who are the cream of the cream of the cream of the crop. Those women have such terribly lonely lives because men almost always, like, their brains melt and they get super horny just even looking at these women. All they can think about is having sex with them. So it's very difficult to have any kind of relationship there, right? And then women, other women are generally like extremely hateful towards these women. And plus these women are super targeted by the forces of Moloch. And so one of the things I think will come during this next 18-year cycle is starting to not attack beauty, because both men and women in different ways attack the real archetype of beauty quite often in the form of beautiful women, and they end up being really isolated, and they could actually be real conduits for something otherworldly, because there is something just truly heavenly about female beauty in particular. But even really beautiful men, they also are very targeted by these forces, because in both cases, if you can turn them to your agenda, a beautiful woman can net many, many men into your net, and a beautiful man can net the ones that the beautiful woman couldn't, plus the few women you need to influence. That'll be a piece of cake. So beautiful, really beautiful human beings, like they often have to live a very sad life. And I think that that's going to change over the next 18 years as we move out of the Kali Yuga, and it'll be more revered the way that it should be. And I'm not talking about in a narcissistic, awful way where society becomes corroded and destroyed. That's the Kali Yuga model, right? Literally models model, right? And I don't think that's what we're going to see in the future. And then there's also the divine feminine and beauty, like it doesn't need to be a woman who is necessarily classically beautiful to radiate a frequency that's far more gorgeous than the most gorgeous Instagram model. Women who are truly in touch with their spiritual depths and they fully unfold in the divine feminine, they're always 10s. It literally does not matter what they look like. They are just an absolute 10 out of 10 for the beauty of the divine feminine, because they're fully embracing who they are. And it's hard in this world where there's this standard of the impossible to reach Instagram model I just described, who herself is deeply alienated and sad inside, right? Because it just becomes increasingly hollow. A lot of them have a smirk on their face, or a lot of them look just tremendously sad. These unbelievably gorgeous women, they look just tremendously sad. And so, like, there is a tremendous beauty that all women can exude who fully step into who and what they are, that transcends the material beauty of the physical form. That said, there's also value that we should recognize as a society in natural beauty, male and female. The most attractive human being I've ever seen in my life, the most beautiful human being I've ever seen in my life, was actually a man. I was at a party one time, and it was like a private party for all these rich kids. I'm just going to take a sip real quick. I had been seeing this woman for a while who was super into the hula hoop thing in Portland. And she was like, it was her birthday party, and she had a friend of hers who was her hula hoop instructor. And this woman traveled the world teaching people hula hoop. And she said, hey, can anyone give me a ride? I have a gig after this. And I was like, sure, I'll give you a ride. And so I give her a ride, and she's like, hey, you should come in with me real quick. We just talked on the way there. And I was like, sure. And we went inside. It was this weird building, but these super, super wealthy kids were having a party there. And the people who lived there rented their place out for rich kid parties. And so they had bunches of private DJs who were all fire. They had this girl who was like God tier, like performed for Emiratis in Dubai, hula hooper. It was so funny because she did such simple things mostly, but they were flawless. And then she would like make it more creative, and it was just like she was perfectly in the flow, and she was amazing. And you could just tell that everybody there was loaded, right? Like I was definitely like the least loaded person there. Not a competition, but I would have won that one handily, right? And so people are like straight up doing drugs off the table and stuff, just openly, and like lots of money worth of drugs, and you could tell it was high quality. And I was just like, God damn, like this is a different level, right? And I went to the bar, and the bartender has his back to me, and he turns around, and he's just like, whoosh, slow motion. And like, even though he had short hair, he like waggled his head, and drops of water came off it. And he moved in slow-mo, and then he was like, bro, you okay? And I was like, whoa, sorry, dude, just what the fuck? Like, this guy was just otherworldly good looking. I don't even know how to describe him. He was Italian, I guess. And so he was that blue-eyed Italian, and like the most perfected version of it that you've ever seen. Perfect lips, perfect nose, gorgeous, perfect eyes, perfect, super masculine face structure. He was like, literally the only weakness this guy had was that he was like 5'6" or 5'7". The women did not care. Like, he took a shine to me, and we were just like talking, and I was being funny and charming and whatever, because I was like, fuck it, we ball, right? I'm at this party, I don't even know how I got here, right? And he really liked me, and he wanted to talk. Dude, women would come up, and they would be like, oh, and he would turn around to them, and they'd be like, oh God, Jake, just I need your babies. Like, right on the spot. With like orgasm on the spot at how hot he was. And women would be like across the room looking around, and they'd look at him, and they'd come running over to order a drink. I watched so many women in this tiny period of time, and they were all like super smoking 8s and 9s, but this guy was like, boy, he was clearly a follower of Spinal Tap, because he's like, oh, I'm going to take this handsomeness up to 11, mate, because this guy was fucking otherworldly good looking. And the entire time talking to him, I'm like, am I gay? Did I go gay? Did I suddenly spontaneously become gay? Because I low-key think I banged this guy. Like, what is happening to me right now? And I'm normally like all about the ladies. I'm all about, I'm all about lady parts. Let's just put it that way, right? I was about to say even be more crude than usual there, but I am all about women. But in this moment, I was like hashtag questioning in that exact second. This guy was just fucking ludicrously good looking. And there was something about his looks to where you just want to be near it. You just want to be near it. And even after a while, like I kind of settled down and I wasn't feeling that same kind of like attraction to this guy. And I just wanted to be near him. Like I found myself kept going to want over to talk to him and hang out with him and stuff like that. And plus he really liked me and we just kind of jived for whatever reason. But, certainly I find that with women, it's a little more obvious with women that I'm like, I want to be near them. I want to be super near them. I want to be all the way inside them, right? So it's a little bit different here, but there's something archetypal and powerful for the human psyche, and it is the higher octave of Venus, which is what we're talking about here, exalted Venus in Pisces, that is the divine feminine. And so, yeah, absolutely it'll be a move away from that. So I need a drink here. Yes, it definitely does. So Juju Bear writes, it feels strange feeling so much relief that we'll soon be in a Luciferian age, lesser of two evils. Does that age make it easier to be closer to the Most High? Yes, it does. Like, because we'll be allowed to have these golden age enclaves, right? That's just the name that the angels gave me. Although I'm going to be working on that. That's actually one of the texts I'm firing off tomorrow, is to send a text to this mysterious guy who says he wants to make Most High, or a golden age enclave think tank, and that he has some potential funding lined up to start working on things. So just from the nature of that, we'll be allowed to do our own thing. Those of us who are moving in that direction, and will be left alone, is a huge step in the right direction. I would argue that the Luciferian age is a lot, the Hindus say that it's easier to attain enlightenment in the Kali Yuga because you like look around and you go, oh, God, get me out of here, right? Like you want to get out of there. You're really compelled to rise above it in the Kali Yuga. In the Luciferian age, because it's a false light, it's going to look so much better than what we've had the past 6,000 years. And it really will be, but there's going to be endless flash and dazzle, right? Endless flash and dazzle. You're probably going to see and speaking of beauty, you're probably going to see genetic engineering to where we can genetically engineer ourselves to look different. I think that that's happening probably in the next 20 to 30 years. It could be sooner than that. It could already exist, but so being able to change our physical appearance, incredible technologies you can't really imagine. I mean, 2 that I can't imagine that I know are out there. 3 actually, according to the angels, are anti-gravity, basically limitless energy. And then the third one that the angels say, I've seen no evidence of this. I've seen enough evidence of anti-gravity and air quotes free energy that I can accept that exists, but is med beds, which are light-based healing beds, light and sound perhaps. Supposedly that will also be coming out. And so all that stuff's pretty clutch, right? Sounds pretty good. The whole just ending all the pedos is you had me at freaking Nuremberg 2 for pedos, right? You know what I mean? You sold me immediately on taking over the minute you said, get rid of the pedos, right? And then there's all sorts of other benefits they're going to offer, but it's going to be a false light that moves humanity into illusionary materialism, right? Not the stark reality of the Kali Yuga, but wow, the dazzle, right? Think pre-woke Hollywood and the dazzle of Vegas when you first go before you kind of feel into the energy. But it won't have that heavy energy that those 2 have. So it'll be just super dazzling, lots of art, lots of advancements in science. Humanity is just going to pop off in the biggest possible way. But ultimately, we're going to find that if we put ourselves at the center, right? If we put humanity and therefore Lucifer at the center, it's hollow, ultimately. It's a bit like that Rahu energy that I was talking about earlier. And so, eventually over 6,000 years of that, humanity will get as sick of the Luciferian age as we currently are of the Kali Yuga. And then you'll be on the cusp of the Golden Age. And in the Golden Age, all the flaws of the Luciferian age will be refined. But I tell you what, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Moloch and his boys thrown back into the pit of the lower astral. All righty. Oh, I'm going to keep this. I'm pinning this for the chat. Yes. Thank you so much. There we go. A little Luciferian, Ian's moment of Luciferian consciousness. I like it when people give me compliments like that. I won't lie. Okay. Maybe 42. Hey, you could have just let the not 48 stand, and then you could have chopped a decade off there if you really wanted to be my friend. Never mind, you're canceled. Look, within. I'm just kidding. Oh yeah, cicadas. Get your apocalyptic cicadas. 99 cents per cicada. Wow. You're now see, this is a way to harness this energy of business with yet has unexpected cicada-based business model. By the way, honestly, that might be the worst thing that happens down in the South is the 200-year lineup of the 17-year and 13-year cicadas is going to happen. And I was reading something about there's some fungus that some of them get that makes them hypersexual, but they're actually like zombies. And what it is that the fungus, like a cordyceps takes over an ant, it takes over the cicada, it makes them hypersexual mating, and then it passes that fungus on, which then parasitizes the next one. So yeah, pretty crazy. Wow, dude, Max, you're already raking it in. Like you could be a trillionaire if you harvest all those cicadas. Supposedly there's going to be a trillion with the T cicadas. I bet you driving is a fucking nightmare down there for however long that lasts. Because I went through a cicada. I actually went through a cicada hatch in Texas in the 80s. And I saw at least one, and maybe two, like a minor one, a more significant one, and a minor one, to where people were getting cicadas splattered over the windshield. And there were so many crushed cicadas on the ground that you had to add a lot of room for braking. And sometimes if you try to accelerate on a left turn, it would your car would kind of fishtail out because there were so many cicadas. And there's going to be at least double that this time around. So if you're where the cicada hatch is, which, man, the cicada hatch is almost exactly where the eclipse X is happening. It's just kind of nutty. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Love that. So yeah, this month of April is going to be insane. Oh, now see, look. So here, how do I pin this to the chat forever? You look 30. Yes. We're going to end the chat there. We're going to immortalize this moment, and we're going to open every chat from now on with this. Thank you. So no more human trafficking. This very visceral feeling. So many tears must be feeling the energetic lift. They have to get rid of it. The Lucy's have a not just a moral imperative, but a spiritual imperative to get rid of it. And I think that's what that bridge thing was about. I think it was like saying we're cutting it off. So yeah, we'll see. Oh my God. Oh man, that is Plutonian humor if I've ever seen it. Okay, I didn't want to bring it up before, but were you very flatulent during one of your breaks on a previous episode talking about? I hope not. Dear God, I don't think so, but I suppose it's possible. Thank you, Ian. I got so much on your channel. Lots of what you say is very healing. This is divine timing. I'm radiating gratitude. Oh, that's wonderful. I'm so glad. We call it Tarachi Bum Bum, Mr. Deslock. Klaus in the house, 99-cent cicadas, free beer. Yeah, no kidding. All right. Well, I guess if I'll give people just a couple minutes if anyone else has a question, and then we'll probably wrap it up there. We'll just have a shorter stream today, which is fine. Just the main takeaway today is the whole section on what you can do to lean into this eclipse energies and allow it to be transformative and really help you out. And, as always, the keystones, regardless of this eclipse, are always healing trauma first. If you have trauma that you won't be able to do anything else until you heal that trauma, it sucks. I've done it. I'm still in the process of doing it. It's hard work. I was diagnosed with complex PTSD, and the person who worked with me was a trauma specialist, and they said it was the worst case they had seen. This was right around the time my son was born, actually, 15 years ago. He said only people he had seen who had been in some kind of torture pit, like an intelligence agency run torture pit, had it worse than I did. And so I'm just saying that no matter what's happened to you, you can heal it. It's not easy. It's hard. And there's definitely people I know have had it harder than me. And maybe I just had the absolute maximum a human being can have and recover. I don't know. I don't think so, though. I truly believe that anyone and everyone can heal whatever trauma you have. It is hard work, but it's the rewards are endless once you do it. You'll feel like Goku when he comes back to Earth in Dragon Ball Z, and you've been training for months on a heavy gravity planet. Once you get rid of that 8,000-pound gorilla of trauma off your back, like, you're going to be shocked at how strong you are. And you survived it. You did the hard part already, which was surviving whatever caused the trauma, right? So you survived that. That shows that you're strong and resilient. You haven't taken your life. Maybe you have a drug problem or some kind of addiction, a pornography addiction, whatever, but you can heal it. I really believe that, and I really have faith in you. And once you heal the trauma, then it's about taking accountability for your entire life. You know, you don't take accountability for stuff that happened when you're a kid, but you take accountability for everything that's happened since you become an adult, because that's where your power lies. If you don't take any accountability whatsoever for your life, you're just giving all your power away. Why do you think the Malachians are constantly trying to get everyone to think they're victims and cancel anyone who talks about an empowering message, right? And try and convince everyone they're victims and to revel in their victimhood. Because when you're a victim, you give your power away. Oh my gosh, I'm so offended. You triggered me, right? Or you could just be like, hey, fuck you. You're an asshole. Like, what a shitty thing to say. Fuck off. And I'm out, right? You don't need to cancel them. You don't need to do all this stuff, right? And really all that is that you've given your power away and that you've become part of a collective that's weaponizing empathy. And so working on that accountability piece, I'm just going to leave this one up because I like it so much. Working on that accountability piece is just really, it's really everything, because that's where your power lies. Sure, there's external factors. Of course there are, but we can't control those. The only thing we can control is what's going on internally. And that makes all the difference in the world. That is what is needed to take a step in the right direction. Like, anybody watching this, like, you have talents. They're going to be different from mine. They're going to be different from Rick's. Rick happens to be really funny and a great judge of age within no more than 6 months to either side. So that's one of Rick's talents right there. I can say that right off the top. But we all have different talents, and it's about realizing those and sharing them with the world and having the courage to do that, and doing the hard work to figure out how does that actually work? How can you actually make that work? Because you can, it takes work. And there's certain things that are under a lot of pressure right now, right? Like artists. So if you have the means and the money, pay artists to do real art, right? Pay musicians to do real music, because the bots are coming for those jobs first. And as long as, that's another thing, looping back to that beauty theme, the arts. We need to support the arts again. We've really, really, really forgotten how important the arts are. And the attack by the Malachians on the arts, which started in the 60s and 70s with like the modern art trash and the Campbell Soup guy, what's that dumbass's name? I can't think of him. But he was a CIA asset. All these, so much of what was awful in the 60s and 70s and onward in art is about money laundering. And it's nothing to do with real art. And so we need to support the arts. I just think that's so important. So we'll see. Are there any last questions? No, there are not. So just remember, accountability is the path to power. And the more accountability you take, the more powerful you become. And the first thing is take accountability for someone hurt you in the past, but now it's up to you to take accountability for your life and heal that trauma. Right? Believe me, I understand. Believe me, I understand. Believe me, I understand how hard it is to live with trauma. You can heal it. You really can. All right. Well, much love, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and end it there. And special thank you to, real quick, I want to give special thanks to Daniel Smith, Dave G. Man Minor, and also Dabagayar Broski 26. Thank you so much for your donations. Really appreciate it. Much love, everyone, and I'll see you next time. All right, bye-bye.